What's the saddest wedding you've ever been to? I once worked as a waitress at a wedding where everything felt wrong from the start. Just 2 days before, a whole carload from the groom's family, his grandma, his sister, her spouse, and their two small kids, had all been killed in a tragic accident while traveling to the wedding. Some died instantly, others only hours later in the ICU. Despite the unimaginable loss, the couple decided to go ahead with the ceremony as planned. Honestly, it felt like they were too distracted, too overwhelmed to cancel, and didn't want to be rude by not showing up, especially since they'd already paid for everything in full. They held the ceremony and then somehow made it to the reception venue. The atmosphere was incredibly tense. The bride's family, along with the groom's, were devastated. I've waited at plenty of wakes, but none felt as raw and palpable as this. The grief in that room was almost suffocating. The photographer was asked by 4 different people at various times to also cover the joint funeral, which made it clear where everyone's mind was. No one drank much, if at all. A few people got drinks for others, but they mostly went untouched, and our glassies had to discreetly clear away untouched beers without drawing attention. Even the champagne toast never happened. The speeches were made, and everyone listened in silence. The bride and groom only drank water. When the meal came, hardly anyone ate. The first dance was gut-wrenching, with a room full of people openly crying. The groom's mother, who had just lost so many family members, sat frozen, like a statue. She smiled weakly at anyone who approached, but for the most part, people gave her space. Eventually, 2 women took her up to her hotel room, and we all assumed she had taken something to cope with the overwhelming grief. She looked drained, like she was barely holding herself together. Her face was pale, and she seemed detached, almost like a living ghost. The saddest part, for me, was watching the father of the bride. He was deeply sad, not on the same level as the groom's family, but it was clear that his little girl's big day had been ruined. He had done his best to keep everything going, approving every little detail of the night. He had paid for everything too, generously, but none of that mattered anymore. At the end of the night, after everyone had gone, he lined us up to thank us for our work. He handed us $50 tips, telling us how much he appreciated the extra mile each of us had gone, mentioning how he'd always planned to tip us well. But you could just see in his eyes how broken he was. His daughter's wedding, his dream day, had been obliterated, and he knew that family would never be the same. After I got home, I cracked open a beer, stared at it for a while, and just started crying. I couldn't stop for a long time.